Hello, today I'm playing Reflection on Board Game Arena. This is a fun but challenging puzzle game where you're trying to arrange these pieces throughout this 8x8 board to achieve objectives. And we can see what it looks like here. These are all the objectives that you have to fulfill for this particular puzzle. Each number and color specifies something about a laser emerging from that cell. So if you have a gray number, that means that the laser is going to travel through, in this case, 3 cells before it hits a black hole. So if you put a black hole here, you can see the red goes away because that objective has been fulfilled. The green numbers specify how many cells a laser will pass through before it meets another cell of the same green number. So all the green numbers come in pairs. In this case, a green 3 could be fulfilled by putting 2 angled mirrors here where the laser passes through 3 cells to achieve that objective. Finally, you have the yellow cells, which specify that a laser is going to travel in one direction and then bounce back in the same direction and go back to where it started. So a yellow 3 could be fulfilled here by putting a double mirror where the light bounces off of that and comes back. So it's going 1, 2, 3. Notice that you can't fulfill that objective with an angled mirror because the light's going to bounce off in a different direction. So that's pretty much how the game works. You have all these pieces that you're going to try and place on the board, and you're going to try to fulfill all the objectives. So all the red goes away on the perimeter. You can see here that this one is already fulfilled with a laser going through 8 cells, but there are other 8s here, so it's possible we might have to make some changes. I'm playing with the arena settings where you have 19 items that you have to place, and any type of item is fair game. So in this case, we're playing with all the different possible items you could have. This also has these light warp cells where if a laser passes through it, it's going to enter in one warp and exit going in the same direction through the other one. So that's something that can complicate things as well. I'm going to show you how I would approach solving a puzzle like this. I used to struggle solving these puzzles and recently became a good player. And in order to become a good player, I played a lot of games and got a lot of practice and learned how to solve these puzzles quickly enough where I could solve them in less than 10 minutes. I'm doing this with commentary and want to explain things the best way as I can. So I'm not playing with the 10-minute time limit, but this is the approach I would use if I was. So to start with any puzzle here, I'm always going to start by filling in the cells that I'm 100% certain about, starting with the smallest numbers, which are the easiest ones. In this case, I can tell right away that a black hole has to go here because there's a gray 1 there, and I can control click to lock that in. The next thing that jumps out to me is the green 2s, which have to go together. There are 2 green 2s here, but you can see those have to go together as well. So I'm going to fulfill that by placing those. It's possible you could put some triangles in here, but the particular triangle that I have wouldn't work for this combination. And the gray 3 is also supported there, but we have to make sure that it can pass through here. So we can't have anything blocking its path. We also can't have anything blocking the yellow 11's path. So we know that this has to be nothing. Similarly, we can put a triangle here for the green 2. I'm not going to lock it in just yet because it could be the triangle, but I will lock in this because I do know that we can't have anything here. Furthermore, we can put in the green 3s like we did before. And we know that the next thing I notice is the yellow 1. We have to have something that bounces it back, but there are 3 different possible pieces that could do that, so I'm not going to put anything there just yet. The next thing that is interesting to me is the green 8s because we have this one here that I'm noticing. The only other green 8 that's within striking distance is this one here. There is this one, but if the laser went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that could work. I just feel like it's way more likely that the laser is going to go through here. But I think I've pretty much finished the first step of this puzzle, which for me is filling in everything that I'm certain about. Everything that I've locked in, I'm 100% certain that's what's supposed to go there. Now I'm going to start filling in things that I'm really confident about. I'm fairly confident this is going to be an angled mirror here. It could be a triangle, but we'll leave the angled mirror there for now. I'm noticing that if we put an angled mirror here, that does a pretty good job because it actually fulfills the 8s and the 9s. It gets that 8 and as well as this 9. At the beginning of a puzzle, anytime you can place something that solves multiple criteria at the same time, in this case 4 different cells, that's a pretty good indication that that's what you want to do next. You will find that you will quickly run out of these pieces that you want to use. So anytime you can place something that kind of accomplishes multiple things at the same time, that's pretty efficient and makes your life easier later on. The next thing I'm noticing here is we have a gray 7, which is 7 cells away from this black hole. So I'm going to tentatively put that there. I'm also noticing that if we put a black hole right here, then we could do something like this to fulfill the gray 5s. I'm not certain about any of this stuff yet, but it makes sense and it's simple. So that's what I'm going with for now. Oftentimes, the simplest solutions are going to be the most likely ones, but you will find that some of these puzzles can get really complicated where you're doing some really bizarre stuff to solve the puzzle. So now we have to figure out how to get the gray 10 over to here, which I think is the most likely option. So if we put an angled mirror there, that fulfills that. It bounces off of that. And really, this isn't like a Sudoku puzzle or like a jigsaw puzzle where you're solving one thing at a time and you're 100% certain. You can solve some things with certainty, but then it reaches a point where it's really trial and error, and you want to start with things that you're confident about, but really you just have to like try as many different things as you can. Especially for me, when I play this game, I'm playing on a 10-minute time limit, so there's no time to like spin your wheels for hours solving these things. You just have to try as many different things as you can as quickly as you can. So that's kind of the phase of the game I'm in now, where I'm just doing trial and error. So I see some yellow 3s here. I'm going to do that. I see a yellow 5, so I'm actually going to change this to a square mirror for now. Let's try that. We're fulfilling a lot of different objectives, but not really messing anything up. That's the key. You want to solve things without messing up other stuff. So I can see that this triangle mirror actually blocked the gray 10, so that might not be right. It's more likely we might need the double mirror there. We'll have to figure out something else for the yellow 5. This is where we can see we're already starting to run out of stuff because I have no way to fulfill this yellow 5 without changing things around. So this is where the trial and error really comes in, because you just have to mess around until you find something that works. And eventually you will, but it can be pretty challenging. Another thing I'm noticing here is the yellow 11 can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we change that to a triangle, that would keep the green 2s but fulfill the yellow 11. And now we actually do have a way for the yellow 5 to be fixed. And I did not notice, but that fixes the yellow 23 as well. So sometimes you'll accidentally fix stuff, which is kind of nice. Makes it feel like you're on the right track. And now we only have one piece left, and there are two things that are unfulfilled. Sometimes I'll just like try all the different combinations, and in that case it actually worked. So I actually solved the puzzle just by messing around, and in this case the very first solution that I tried ended up being the correct solution. It's not always going to be that way. Sometimes you have to completely scratch things over, but in this case I was able to solve the puzzle in about 10 minutes, including time for me to commentate. So now I'm going to get started solving this puzzle. And first, my very first step is always to start with the things that I can mark with absolute certainty. So I'm 100% certain an angled mirror has to go here because I see these green twos go together. There are no other pieces that can bend the light in this way. So I'm going to lock that in. I also know that this cell has to be completely empty. I could technically have double mirrors here, which wouldn't interfere with the green 2, but it would interfere with this yellow 23, so it has to be empty. The next thing I'm noticing is the black hole example that I gave before. That has to be empty. The next thing I'm noticing here is that this gray 7 cannot go to this black hole because of parity. You can see that the only ways that I can get from here to here are by an even number of moves. So if it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, that's an even number. If it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's an even number. Therefore, we know that this has to go to the other black hole that we have available to us. Because we know that the other black hole is going to be an odd number of spaces away from this, we can determine that these two gray numbers have to go to this black hole because they do match up with this one in terms of parity. So I can mark these ones as being blank. And we'll have to figure out a way to get this gray 4 to come here as well. It could be a triangle or an angled mirror. I'm not sure yet. Now that we've blocked out this cell, we can see that the only way for the green 4 to get here is if there was something here, either an angled mirror or a triangle. So I'll tentatively put an angled mirror here. I'll do the same for this. I'm not 100% certain about these, but it seems likely. The next thing I'm noticing here is this green 6. Oftentimes the perimeter is a great place to start. If I put an angled mirror here, there are no triangles that work for this right now. That's actually the only way we can fulfill this green 6. So I'm going to block in all of this stuff. And then I'm also seeing the green 5 is set up correctly. So we'll have to make sure that nothing passes through here. I suppose it's possible we could have a double mirror at some point along here. The issue with that is it makes it very difficult to get these yellow numbers fulfilled. The yellow 15 is going to run into this, which does not work. If we try to move the yellow 15, that messes up the yellow 9. Similarly, if we put the double mirror here, we have the same issue with the yellow 9 and the yellow 17. We could do something like that, but it doesn't work. There's no way to do it. So I can block in these as being empty as well. And now we're getting to a point where I'm not seeing anything else that I can block out with 100% certainty. So we're getting to a point where we're going to just have to start making moves that we feel good about. Now, generally, when we move on to this next phase of the puzzle, I'm looking for things that I'm not 100% certain about, but that I'm really confident about. If you can find a move that solves multiple criteria at the same time, that's generally a good sign. And it's also making your life easier, because if you're using an item to solve multiple criteria, it saves all the other items for your disposal later on. I'm seeing these two green sixes have to go together, and the simplest explanation I can see is if we're doing something like this. Oftentimes the simplest explanation is going to be the best one, although there will be some weird exceptions that happen. Next, I'm seeing the green 8, and it seems pretty clear that it's going to have to pass through here to get to this light warp and get to the other green 8. That's the only way it can get there. It can't be a green triangle here, or it can't be a triangle mirror here, because that blocks the yellow 23. So we know this actually has to be an angled mirror, and we can block in all this stuff. Actually, we know this has to be a double mirror so that the green 8 can pass through it, but also block out the yellow 1. We could have a double mirror here, but that prevents us from fulfilling these objectives. So I'm pretty confident this has to be blank as well. So now we have a couple different options for how the rest of this can go. And I'm just going to be doing trial and error a lot more, and hopefully we get a solution that works. Sometimes when you're solving these puzzles, you just have to trial and error as many different things as you can, and eventually you'll get it right. Especially when you're playing on a time limit, you can't just, spin your wheels for an hour thinking about the perfect move. You kind of just have to try a bunch of different things until you get something that works. So right now I'm just putting all these different triangles in. That triangle mirror was nice because it fulfilled the 17 and the 3 at the same time. So that's a good sign. Let's see. That's a good sign. We're fulfilling the 9 and the 15 there. At this point, I'm honestly kind of just button clicking, trying to find something that works. And now this is a pretty good sign. I was kind of just putting in one thing at a time to fulfill some of these numbers, working up from the smaller numbers. It's pretty lucky that I got it right immediately with the yellow 15 and the yellow 17. Normally it takes a little more trial and error than that. And now we're at a point where we just have one number and one piece. So I feel like we're pretty close to being on the right track. And I can just try this along everywhere on that pathway until we find something that maybe works for the yellow 17. In this case, there's nothing that really works. So we did something wrong, and we're going to have to mess with this a little bit. Just trying to think how we can redo this in such a way to give the yellow 17 a chance. Okay, you know what? This is a point where I'm going to show my next tip, which is that sometimes you just have to scratch everything and start over, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove everything I'm not certain about. This time I'm going to start with the yellow 17 because that was the troublesome one. I'm going to see if I can find something that works there. So it's going to have to go to the 9th cell before it bounces back. So there's 7 here, 8, 9. I'm going to try this and see if we can make something work like that. Even if it's wrong, that might help us, come up with some new ideas for solving the other pieces. Just try, just kind of button clicking here until we find something that works. Just doing things different ways. Sometimes all you got to do, got to get the yellow 9 there. Okay, so now we're having an issue with the yellow 3. could try to move this back over here. Maybe something like that. No, that's not working. Yeah, so this can be difficult. You got to try and figure out a way to make everything work. I feel like this square also makes it difficult on the yellow 23, so that might not be the greatest sign. Maybe we can try that again. This is kind of working. So that worked out nicely there. I just tried that and it worked. And that did it. Just by trying a different approach and kind of messing with things, I've managed to get it working. And back with the yellow 13, my thought process back there was, I think I just realized that this yellow 23 couldn't go here because that wasn't long enough. So I tried to divert it, and it was nice that it helped solve the yellow 13. So sometimes you'll be doing trial and error, and it will make things work in a way that you might not have originally seen. So this isn't like a typical puzzle where you might be able to systematically solve everything with certainty and make linear progress, but sometimes you just have to mess around and make smart choices until you eventually get it right. And it does take some practice, but it feels pretty good when you are finally able to get it working. So that's how you play Reflection. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you want to see more stuff like this or other games, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll be making more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.